welcome to my YouTube channel Vision Class. Today we are seeing about NCERT UGC NET Paper 2 Commerce Unit 1 Business Environment and International Business Part 5. I hope all of you understand the previous part's topic of this unit. If it is useful, please like, share, subscribe and give your comments in comment box. Fine. Now in this part we are seeing about theories of international trade. Fine. So let's see. What is international trade theories? Why it is necessary to understand theories of international trade? Because the theories of international trade explains why nations are together. It explains which goods should be exported and imported. It also states what conditions are necessary for exchange goods. Right? International trade theories are simply different theories to explain international trade. In previous parts, we are seen what is trade or business or what is meant by international business or international trading, right? The concept of exchange of goods and services between two people or entities is called trade. Similarly, international trade is the concept of this exchange between people or entities in between two different countries. Fine. People or entities trade because they believe that they benefit from the exchange. Right? They may need or want the goods or services. While at the surface this may sound very simple, there is a great deal of theory, policy and business strategy that constitutes international trade. In this section, you will learn about the different trade theories that have evolved over the past century and which are most relevant today. Fine. In more recent century, economists have focused on trying to understand and explain these trade patterns. Thomas Friedman's flat world approach segments history into three stages. These are globalization 1.0 from 1492 to 1800, globalization 2.0 from 1800 to 2000, and globalization 3.0 from 2000 to the present. In globalization 1.0, nations dominated global expansion. In globalization 2.0, multinational companies ascended and pushed global development. And today's technology drives globalization is 3.0. Right? To better understand how modern global trade has evolved, it's important to understand how countries traded with one another historically. Over time, economists have developed theories to explain the mechanism of global trade. Right? So let's see. The main historical theories are called classical country-based theories, right? Are from the perspective of a country or a country-based. By the mid-20th century, the theories began to shift to explain trade from a firm rather than country perspective. These theories referred to as modern and are firm-based or a company based, right? Both of these categories, classical and modern, consist of several international theories. See one by one. Mercantilism theory. Oldest theory developed during 16th century in Europe. Then second one is absolute advantage theory, given by Adam Smith in 1776. A country has absolute advantage in the production of a product when it is more efficient than any other, right? Then third one is a comparative advantage. This postulate David Ricardo in 1817. This theory says ability of a country to produce a good at a lower marginal cost and opportunity cost than other product. Fine. Fourth classical country-based theory is Heckscher-Ohlin. It is also called factor endowment theory or HO theory. It is given by Elie Heckscher and Bradley Ohlin. This theory is also called HO theory. Right? Then modern firm-based theories consist are number 1, country similarity. Country similarity theory given by Stefan Linder, a Swedish economist in 1961. It explained the concept of intra-industry trade. Right? Then second theory is product life cycle. The credit for this theory goes to Raymond Vernon, developed in 1960. Third theory is global strategic rivalry theory. Economist Paul Krugman and Kelvin Lancaster came up with this theory in the 1980s. This theory focuses on how companies can get a comparative advantages. Fine. And the fourth and last theory is Porter's national competitive advantage. Porter's postulate that theory in 1990 explain national competitive advantage. Fine. So let's see one by one. In this part we are seeing about first classical or country based trade theories. Let's see one by one. First theory of classical or country based trade theory is mercantilism. It developed in the 16th century. Mercantilism was one of the earliest efforts to develop an economic theory. This theory stated that country wealth was determined by the amount of its gold and silver holdings. In its simplest sense, mercantilism believed that a country should increase its holdings of gold and silver by promoting export and discouraging imports. Right? In other words, if people in other countries buy more from you, it is exports, than the sell to you, it is imports. Then they have to pay you the difference in gold and silver. The objective of each country was to have a trade surplus or a situation where the value of exports are greater than the value of imports. And to avoid a trade deficit or a situation where the value of imports is greater than the value of exports. The 15th century marked the rises of new nation states whose rulers wanted to strengthen their nations by building large arms and national institutions. Right? By increasing exports and trade, these rulers were able to amass more gold and wealth for their countries. Right? One way that many of these new nations promoted exports was to impose restriction on imports. This strategy is called protectionism and is still used today. Nations expanded their wealth by using their colonies around the world in an effort to control more trade and amass more riches. The British colonial empire was one of the more successful examples. Right? It sought to increase its wealth by using raw materials from places ranging from what are now the Americas and India. France, the Netherlands, Portugal and Spain were also successful in building large colonial empires that generated extensive wealth for their governing nations. Right? I hope all of you understand mercantilism theory, which is oldest theory. So keep in mind, oldest theory is mercantilism theory. On this question also arises, which is oldest theory, like that. Fine. So let's see second theory of a classical or country based trade theories is absolute advantage theory. In 1776, Adam Smith questioned the leading mercantile theory of the time in The Wealth of Nations. Adam Smith, An Inquiry into the Nature and Cause of the Wealth of Nations. Smith offered a new trade theory called absolute advantage, which focused on the ability of a country to produce a good more efficiently than another nation. Smith reasoned that trade between countries shouldn't be regulated or restricted by government policy or interventions. He stated that trade should flow naturally according to market forces. Right? What is perspective? Trade should be flow naturally according to market force. In a hypothetical two-country world, if country A could produce a good cheaper or faster than country B, then country A had the advantage and could focus on specializing on producing that good. Right? Similarly, if country B was better at producing another good, it could focus on specialization as well. By specialization, countries would generate efficiency because their labor force would become more skilled by doing the same task. Production would also become more efficient because there would be an incentive to create faster and better production methods to increase the specialization. Right? Smith's theory reasoned that with increased efficiency, people in both countries would benefit and trade should be encouraged. His theory states that a nation's wealth shouldn't be judged by how much gold and silver it had, but rather by the living standards of its people. Right? Smith's theory stated that nations' wealth shouldn't be judged by how much gold and silver it had, but rather living standard of its people. Right? Smith absolute theory of cost advantage says that country A has cost advantage in the production of steel because he required less cost capital rather than cost, so it can export steel and import jute. For example, country A produce steel and jute. For production of a steel, he require only 50 cost of production point, and for production of jute required 100 cost of production of a point. Similarly, B country also produce steel, but for that cost of production he require 100 cost of production point, and for the production of jute he required 50 cost of production of a point. Right? So, country A has cost advantage in the production of steel. So, it can export steel and import jute from country B. Country B has a cost advantage in the production of jute. So, it can export jute and import steel. Right? Next theory is comparative advantage theory. The challenges to the absolute advantage theory was that some countries may be better at producing both goods and therefore have an advantage in many areas. Right? In contrast, another country may not have any useful absolute advantages. To answer this challenge, David Ricardo, an English economist, introduced the theory of comparative advantage in 1870. Ricardo reasoned that even if country A had the absolute advantage in the production of both products, specialization and trade could still occur between two countries. Comparative advantage occurs when a country cannot produce a product more efficiently than the other country. However, it can produce that product better and more efficiently than it does other goods. The difference between these two theories, comparative advantage focus on the relative product differences, whereas absolute advantage look at the absolute. Let's look at a simple hypothetical example to illustrate the subtle difference between these principles. For example, Myra is a Wall Street lawyer who charges rupees 5000 per hour for her legal services. Right? It turns out that Myra can also type faster than the administrative assistants in her office. 400 rupees per hour. Even though Myra clearly has the absolute advantage in both skill sets, should she do both jobs? No. For every hour Myra decides to type instead of do legal work, she would be giving 4600 in income. Her productivity and income will be highest if she specializes in the higher paid legal services and hires the most qualified administrative assistant who can type fast although a little slower than Myra. By having both Myra and her assistant concentrate on their respective tasks, their overall productivity as a team is higher. This is comparative advantage. A person or a country will specialize in doing what they do relatively better. In relatively, the world economy is more complex and consists of more than two countries and products. Barriers to trade may exist and goods must be transported, stored and distributed. However, these simplistic examples demonstrate the basis of the comparative advantage theory. Right? For example, country A have a cost advantage on both products, that is rice and jute, right, than the B. Hence, find out production of which goods is comparatively lesser. Find out in between that which is less and start specializing in its production. So, company A have a lesser than rice to produce jute, right? So, he have to totally focus on production of a jute. Therefore, both countries should specialize in production of a commodity. And in company B also produce rice and jute and their cost of production is lesser than jute. So, comparative theory says that it's compare the products of its own country, not other countries. Right? First of all, we have to compare the our products in own basis in at a firm. And absolute advantage theory is what says it's compare a product with another country. Right? This is the difference between comparative theory and absolute theory. Fine? All of you understand absolute theory and comparative theory. Now we see factor endowment theory. The theories of Smith and Ricardo didn't help countries determine which products would give a country an advantage. Both theories assume that free and open markets would lead countries and produce to determine which goods they could produce more efficiently in the early 19th century. Two Swedish economists, Eli Heckscher and Bertil Ohlin, focused their attention on how a country could gain comparative advantage by producing products that utilize factors that were in abundance in the country. Abundance means in a large scale, right? Their theory is based on country production factors. These are land, labor, and capital, which provides the funds for investment in plants and equipments. They determine that the cost of any factor or resources was a function of supply and demand. Factors that were in great supply relative to demand would be cheaper. Factors in great demand relative to supply would be more expensive. Their theory, also called the factor proportion theory, state that countries would produce and export goods that require resources or factors that were in great supply and therefore cheaper production factors. In contrast, country would import goods that require resources that were in short supply but higher demand, right? For example, in this country A, labor intensive factor is 10%, land intensive factor is 60%, and capital intensive factor is 30%. And in country B, labor intensive factor is 42%, land intensive factor is 35%, and capital intensive factor is 23%. So, company A should be import labor intensive factors from company B, and country B should be import land incentive factor from A, because which factors are abundance are available at present, that factor should export to another country to get their advantage, right? And which is lesser, we have to import that factor. This is the factor proportion theory, right? But exception is Leontief model. Leontief model says that it was considered the country will tend to export those commodities which use its abundant factors of a production intensively and import those which use its scarce factors intensively. HO theory says that, right? But by common concept, the United States is the country that is most abundant in capital. Therefore, it is expected the US to export capital intensive goods and import labor intensive goods. But the Leontief conclusion that in the international division of a labor, the US specialize in labor intensive rather than capital intensive goods, contradictory the widely accepted view derived from the HO theory, right? So, exception of a HO theory is Leontief model. Some of the example of factor endowment theory are China and India are home to cheap large pools of labor. Hence, these countries have become the optimal locations for labor intensive industries like textile and garments, right? So here it is complete the classical or country based trade theories. Fine. I hope all of you understand all classical country based theories. The modern based theories we will be seen in next part of video. So keep watching and like, share and subscribe to my channel to getting such type of knowledgeable videos, and give comments in comment box. Fine. Thank you.